Hey everybody, it's Matt again, coming to you from Devon, South Devon. I'm in a forest tract near Dartmoor. I'm actually standing close to, anyway, I can't quite tell, some ramparts from an Iron Age hill fort. It's about 2,200 years old, which is pretty cool. Tickles the Celt in my heart. I was at a farm journalist's colleague's family's place yesterday. They're dairy farmers down here in Devon. We were talking hedgerow management. There's a lot of hedgerows around here. They're really important to uh, the local area, and they have been for a really long time. Um, some of them laid in the 18th century, some of them laid in the 16th century. Some of them are actually, speaking of Iron Age, and even earlier than that, Bronze Age even. Some of the existing um, hedgerows are still outlining and the what would have been very similar enclosures from ancient days. Needless to say, again, environmentally and culturally very significant. Um, and there's lots of efforts to try and improve these hedgerows and to reestablish hedgerows and things of that nature. Only speaking to my farm colleagues here, their experience has been a lot of those efforts on the part of government policy specifically haven't really done that. In fact, one of the comments made to me from this individual's experience was that the best thing that they could do, the government he means, would actually be to just leave them alone so they could manage their hedgerows, which are very important to their farming operation and what they do. Just leave them alone to manage it the way they did before. Part of his reasoning was, for example, there are restrictions now on what time of year you can trim hedgerows. Now, the intention of that is to support different bird species and biodiversity. That way you're not shaking them all up and when they're nesting and so on and so forth. But what that's actually done, just in this one particular case, is now the most practical time for the farmers to trim these hedgerows in this area. And again, this is just this person's experience, so please don't yell at me if somebody else has something different to say. Again, discussion is what we need. Now, the most practical time for them to cut it is when everything's in fruit. So when the blackberries and the currants and everything are ready to be picked and eaten, or the nuts in the trees have fallen and people can collect those. And so they're actually getting some grief from their local counselors and parishioners on cutting the hedgerows now, wherein they didn't before. So it's just an example, I think, of one of these unintended consequences for this family and for communities like this, of policy that is designed to have a positive impact, but maybe on the ground is just a little bit more complicated than what I believe the spreadsheet economics and spreadsheet policy was a phrase that was thrown around, than what the people looking at the spreadsheets and designing these policies might think. But anyway, just a thought for now. So I actually found I mentioned that hill fort. I found it. I don't know if you can kind of see. I'm actually standing on the what would have been the outer remains of the outer ring wall right now. Just a quick extra thought. I had mentioned that the farmer's experience was they wanted to be left alone to manage the hedgerows, and instead of being forced to do various different things to it by regulation, specifically cutting them at certain times of the year and so on. Their position is that the peak of hedgerow management for them was actually tied directly to the era or time period where their subsidy system was based more specifically on production and less on environmental issues. Here in the UK, there's I'm summarizing a lot here, so bear with me, but there's been a really big shift to environment-driven subsidy systems and pushes for environmental restoration over food production. And I think, again, this is just an example of how economic policy and environmental policy are very clearly linked and really directly affect each other. So if you're going to try and restore an area, it's worth looking back to historically, what have the policies been, farm policies been, not just on the environmental side, but on the economic side too. You know, not getting tunnel vision, as they say.